Hey folks, the USPSA elections are on. The presidential runoff and the Area 6 runoff election are on. If you're a USPSA member, you should definitely vote in the presidential election. My pick would be Luigi Lee. I think he's very interesting as far as a candidate, as far as a guy with different thinking, a guy who's going to maybe potentially drive some change. That'd be the guy I'd look to. People who are listeners of mine, they know that I don't like Yeaman that much. He didn't do anything that interesting. I mean, I think Yeaman's an idiot. I'm not going to lie. As far as in Area 6, I like Ben Berry. Again, he thinks differently. He's not afraid to speak his mind. Now, Ben, he thinks differently than most people in terms he's very engineer-brained, like very kind of like math brain type of person. Which is different, but the board does need that type of person, and I like that. Ben's very responsive. He listens to people. You can listen to his views on his podcast. He's fine with people disagreeing. He's fine to have conversations. The other candidate, Kyle Stevens, honestly, he seems like a tool to me. I don't like him very much, and I think he's just going to do what the board wants. Anyway, that's the USPSA election. Let's talk about what the USPSA board has going on. You might have seen some minutes from the board meeting released this morning. It looks like the board is again changing the USPSA bylaws to remove the requirement that the USPSA president be a range officer. Now, this was changed a couple of years ago when the board clamped down, like they were trying to stop Matt Hopkins from becoming president. And if he did become president, to not have any power. This was, part of that whole push that they wanted to change the rules of the game. Like, we want a less powerful president. We want more requirements on the president. And now they're looking to get rid of the requirement that the USPSA president be a range officer. Now, do I think it's a bad thing if the USPSA range officer, or if the USPSA president is a range officer? Not at all. That totally makes sense to me. But I think I said at the time, like, hey, you shouldn't let them do this. Like, when you stack requirements like this, there's second order effects that happen, and you never know what's going to happen. And what did indeed end up happening was Yeaman lost his range officer status, so he could no longer be USPSA president. Even though I don't care for Yeaman, that's just not what you want when you have members picking a president. Like, hey, we picked the president, we want this guy. Then you don't want there to be requirements there, because you can have wonky, weird stuff happen, just like happened previously. That's a bad thing to do, is to have requirements for the president, because again, there's second order effects that are tough to really predict. The same thing is happening now. Now, even though I don't really care for this being a requirement, I don't really care for it. I'm fine with them getting rid of it. But they're doing it in the middle of the election. So now the USPSA board is again sort of changing the rules of the game after the game has already started. People have already cast votes in the presidential election in USPSA. Like this requirement is a big deal. Why? Because that's why, Yeaman is a pretty risky bet as president. I mean, he could just be not eligible again because he's still not a USPSA range officer. So, what's the takeaway from this? The USPSA board continues to be dysfunctional. This is not a good situation. It's not a good thing to do in the middle of the election. This shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening. It's not fair. But they've done a lot of unfair things, and in order to rectify these unfair things, more unfair things are happening. It is USPSA going to USPSA. In any event, if you're a USPSA member, I'm not anymore. They kicked me out. But if you're a USPSA member, you should vote. My pick would be Luigi. If you're in Area 6, I'd vote for Ben Berry. Over time, I'm pretty confident that things are headed in a good direction. We just need to change the power dynamic on the board and start getting some sensible policies and some better leadership, because what they're doing right now, this ain't it. It's not good for anyone. And hopefully it's going to change.